One man, one secret, one impossible choice. Judge Adrian Cole had spent 27 years believing in the certainty of law, in the neat alignment of evidence, testimony, deliberation, and sentence. Yet tonight, everything he trusted was about to shatter. He returned home later than usual, expecting silence, but the house felt wrong, too quiet, the usual hum of Emma's music absent, lights off, shadows stretching unnaturally across the walls. On the kitchen table, a phone he didn't recognize vibrated, ringing insistently, its ringtone mechanical and unwelcoming. Cole approached, pulse rising, and answered. A distorted voice spoke calmly. "Good evening, Judge. Tomorrow you will confirm Daniel Hayes' death sentence. If you refuse, your daughter will not return home." Cole's stomach tightened. "This is a threat," he said evenly. "Empty," the voice chuckled. "Check your phone." He did. A photo of Emma appeared, bound to a chair, eyes red, looking terrified, today's newspaper visible beside her. The voice whispered, 12 hours, one life for another. Choose carefully." Cole stared at the image. Beside the phone lay Emma's necklace. For the first time in his career, the scales he had trusted, the law he had upheld, seemed meaningless. He realized the choice ahead was not merely about justice. It was about life, about morality, about a decision that would define him forever. Every instinct screamed, yet he knew panic would not save her, and logic for once seemed insufficient to navigate the cruel calculus he had been forced into. He took a deep breath, knowing that the next 12 hours would demand every ounce of his experience, every shred of courage, and that any misstep could cost everything he held dear. The house was silent once more, but Cole felt the weight of the unseen eyes upon him, measuring, judging, orchestrating, as the clock began its relentless countdown to dawn. Cole did not call the police. Panic would serve no one. He analyzed the photo of Emma, noting every detail, the chair, her hands, the lighting, the date on the newspaper. Everything was precise, deliberate, designed to make him doubt, to control him. He revisited Daniel Hayes' trial notes, replaying testimony in his mind, considering every word, every hesitation. Hayes had maintained composure, almost as if he knew someone would orchestrate this. Could Hayes himself be involved? Cole shook his head. No, this was larger, a masterclass in manipulation that only a mind familiar with the law could engineer. He checked Emma's room again, bed untouched, window locked. She had been taken earlier professionally, silently, leaving no trace. His phone buzzed, a new message, a short video. Emma, breathing quickly, whispered, "Dad, help me." The camera moved closer to her face, revealing fear restrained by trust. Then the screen went black. Another message followed. "You have 12 hours. Cole sat down heavily, realizing that the law which had guided him now had no power here. He had to act beyond procedure, beyond precedent, with every decision weighted by consequence, knowing one misstep could destroy both justice and life itself. For the first time, Adrian Cole felt the scale tip, not in the courtroom, but in the shadow of a father's fear and a judge's conscience. He exhaled slowly, preparing for the long night ahead, understanding that every choice would be measured, every hesitation punished, and every miscalculation potentially fatal to both his daughter and the man standing trial under his judgment. Cole's mind raced. Every second he delayed, Emma's life hung in the balance. He reviewed the evidence again, security footage, witness statements, ballistic reports. One tiny inconsistency surfaced, a frame missing, a timestamp that glitched for less than a second during the gunfire at the warehouse. That single second could change everything. Could it have been altered to frame Hayes? The possibility chilled him. He accessed court databases from home, reviewing every file remotely, knowing he was being watched. Another message appeared on his phone. "Check the third witness." Attached, a video of a man near the warehouse moments before the shooting, blurred but moving with a precision that indicated planning. Cole's pulse quickened. This was no random threat. Someone had orchestrated every detail to ensure Hayes appeared guilty while holding his daughter's life as leverage. He realized the stakes had evolved. This was no longer merely about a verdict. It was a lesson, a test, a game of morality and judgment designed to see how far he would go. He leaned back, thinking that no amount of legal experience could prepare a man for this confrontation, where every action, every word, and every hesitation had lethal consequences. Time was shrinking, and the scale of justice felt heavier than ever. The weight of both law and life pressed down on him, demanding clarity he did not yet feel, and understanding that failure was not an option. Cole decided to act methodically. He revisited the warehouse evidence frame by frame, analyzing every angle. The missing second of footage loomed large. He considered Hayes' past, the murders, the robbery, the chance that someone else had fired the shots. Could it have been orchestrated from within the system itself? His phone vibrated. Another video. Emma, calm now, untied, holding a small note reading, "Keep thinking." Cole understood. The kidnapper was forcing him to confront not only Hayes' guilt, but the flaws in the system he had served for decades. He drafted a plan to delay the sentencing legally, citing procedural concerns without revealing coercion. Every motion, every word had to be precise. Mistakes could cost his daughter or destroy Hayes' chance for freedom. He reviewed every angle of the law he knew, balancing the human cost against legal obligations. Every detail mattered. Every second was critical. The shadows of the house, the quiet hum of his study, the weight of responsibility pressed down. For the first time, Cole realized justice was not an abstract ideal. It was fragile, manipulable, and tonight it was being wielded like a blade against him. He exhaled, steeling himself for the hours ahead, knowing that the next steps would define the lives of two people he could not afford to lose. He felt the full gravity of each decision pressing on him and understood that this night could change everything forever. The hours passed in tense calculation. Cole's hands moved over the keyboard as he constructed legal motions, procedural loopholes, and references to forensic inconsistencies. He analyzed witness statements, comparing them against footage, noting subtle patterns, rehearsed movements, and timing that suggested manipulation. He realized the kidnapper had access to both information and the law, a rare combination that turned him from adversary to omnipresent strategist. Another message appeared: balance requires action. Emma appeared briefly, eyes wide, the smallest flicker of hope shining through. Cole felt the crushing weight of responsibility, understanding that any false move could tip the scale irrevocably. He rehearsed court language, pacing each argument in his mind, preparing for the scrutiny of colleagues and the eyes of a manipulative opponent who had orchestrated the events leading to this moment. He could not fail, not Hayes. Not Emma, not himself. Each decision would echo through the courtroom, through the lives of the innocent, and through the conscience of a man forced to confront the limits of justice. The clock ticked, and the shadow of inevitable choice loomed closer with every passing second. He drew a deep breath, readying his mind for confrontation, knowing that delay and calculation were his only weapons against a faceless adversary who had mastered every detail of his life. Cole left home under the pretense of court work, though the streets felt ominous, empty, bathed in the pale morning light. Every step toward the industrial district housing the warehouse felt like navigating a minefield. Cameras flickered on abandoned buildings, every shadow seemed alive. He approached the location, heart steady but mind racing. The door was unlocked. Inside, dust and silence greeted him. A projector hummed to life automatically, displaying footage not of Emma but of the courtroom years prior, highlighting cases where he had imposed severe sentences. The voice returned through a speaker: "You took something from us. Now the balance begins." Cole watched, stunned, as he saw the outcomes of past judgments, realizing that the kidnapper's challenge was not only about saving Emma, but forcing him to confront decades of moral decisions. He felt the weight of every life, every choice, every misstep. Justice, he realized, was never abstract. It was fragile, human, manipulable, and tonight it was being wielded like a blade against him. He exhaled slowly, steeling himself, knowing the clock was moving, that each tick brought the challenge closer to its cruel conclusion, and that he could not afford hesitation, not for a second. Cole returned home, his mind working furiously. He sat at his desk, opening the laptop, analyzing emails, witness statements, and forensic reports. Each detail pointed toward manipulation, subtle nudges that made Hayes appear guilty while concealing the true perpetrator. His phone buzzed. Emma appeared, calm but tense, holding a small note reading, "Trust your instincts." Cole realized the kidnapper wanted him to question not only the case but his own judgment. Every decision he made now was measured, calculated. A misstep could cost his daughter's life. He reviewed Hayes' previous statements, noting the slight tremor in his hand, the pause before answering questions. Could that pause have been engineered, manipulated to appear suspicious? Cole understood that the mastermind had intimate knowledge of both the law and human behavior, a combination that gave them complete control. He drafted a legal motion, citing procedural concerns without revealing coercion, creating a narrow path to delay the execution. Every word mattered, every sentence a potential lifeline or trap. He exhaled, preparing for the long night ahead, knowing the coming hours would demand every ounce of his intellect, courage, and resolve. Cole contacted a trusted clerk under the guise of routine work, instructing them to check surveillance footage for irregularities. He analyzed every frame of the warehouse video, noting discrepancies in timing, angles, and shadows. The missing second, once overlooked, now seemed deliberate. His phone vibrated again. A live feed showed Emma pacing in a dimly lit room, eyes flicking nervously toward the camera, a note beside her read. "You know what to do." Cole realized this was more than coercion. It was a test of his moral compass, his professional acumen, and his patience. Every action he took had to anticipate the kidnapper's next move. He calculated risk versus reward for each possible step, knowing that Hayes' fate, Emma's life, and his own conscience were all intertwined. The courtroom procedures, laws, and precedents he had relied upon for decades now seemed insufficient. He had to act creatively, precisely, and ethically, threading a needle between legality and morality, realizing that the margin for error had narrowed to nothing. The weight of responsibility pressed down with each passing second, a constant reminder that failure was no longer an abstract concept but an imminent, personal threat. Cole worked through the night, reviewing every possible scenario, every contingency, mapping out the kidnapper's strategy as if he were a general planning a battle. He realized the adversary had anticipated every standard response, every legal maneuver, and now only innovation and careful judgment could save Emma. Another message arrived, time tests all. The screen showed Emma standing in front of a clock, its hands ticking down steadily, each movement like a hammer against Cole's resolve. He studied Hayes' trial transcripts, focusing on witness credibility, chain of custody, and forensic evidence. Every anomaly became a potential leverage point to buy time. Cole prepared motions citing inconsistencies, procedural errors, and newly surfaced forensic questions. He rehearsed his arguments mentally, anticipating objections, counterarguments, and possible traps. For the first time in his career, he felt the full weight of life versus law pressing on him simultaneously. He was a judge, a father, and a strategist all at once, and every action would reverberate far beyond the courtroom, impacting the lives of two people he could not afford to lose, and testing the very principles he had lived by for decades. Cole submitted the motions to the court electronically, requesting immediate review and hearing. The clerk looked at him curiously but did not question the urgency. He returned to the empty house, eyes flicking to Emma's photo on the phone. Another video appeared, Emma, smiling faintly, holding a note that read, "Halfway there." Cole realized the kidnapper had orchestrated a layered challenge, forcing him to prove his competence, composure, and morality simultaneously. Every detail, from witness statements to video evidence, had been manipulated to test him. He reviewed each motion, ensuring precision and clarity, balancing ethical imperatives against legal necessity. His heart pounded as he imagined the potential outcomes, the lives at stake, and the scrutiny that would follow in the courtroom. Time passed relentlessly, each second tightening the grip of the challenge. Cole knew that success depended not only on logic but on intuition, on the courage to act decisively despite uncertainty, and on the ability to anticipate moves from a master manipulator who had brought his life into a dangerous, moral crucible. Cole arrived at the courthouse early, the city still wrapped in gray morning fog, streets empty, and the echo of his footsteps marking each step. The emergency hearing was scheduled, and he knew every second mattered. He presented his motions to the judge, explaining the procedural anomalies and the inconsistencies in the forensic evidence. The courtroom was silent, the gravity of the moment pressing on everyone. The prosecutor challenged the motions, but Cole remained composed, answering questions precisely, anticipating objections, countering arguments with reason and evidence. He felt the weight of Emma's life pressing on him, knowing that failure would mean the worst outcome imaginable. Outside, unseen, the kidnapper monitored every action, calculating, observing, judging. Cole understood that success required flawless execution and unshakable resolve. He mentally rehearsed each statement, visualized every objection, every reaction, and prepared for the intense scrutiny. Every decision now carried life-and-death consequences, and the courtroom was no longer merely a place of law. It had become the battlefield where justice, morality, and a father's courage would collide in a test that would define him forever. The hearing began. Cole presented the evidence of tampering, carefully outlining the missing footage, misaligned timestamps, and procedural irregularities. He described Hayes' case in detail, emphasizing inconsistencies that could affect the verdict. The judge listened intently, occasionally nodding, while the prosecutor argued procedural technicalities. Cole countered each point with meticulous reasoning, demonstrating that the anomalies could not be dismissed lightly. Meanwhile, his phone vibrated with another message, a live feed of Emma, holding a note reading, "You're close." Cole realized the kidnapper had orchestrated this test to push him to the limits of legality, morality, and psychological endurance. He stayed composed, knowing that any hint of doubt could tip the scales. Every word, gesture, and pause was critical. The courtroom became a stage where intellect, intuition, and courage intertwined. Cole understood fully that the future of two lives, Hayes and Emma, depended not on chance, but on his ability to navigate this labyrinth of law, manipulation, and human vulnerability with perfect precision and unwavering moral clarity. Hours passed. Cole remained focused, mentally reviewing every detail, questioning assumptions, and preparing for every possible counter. The judge examined the evidence, flipping through reports and notes while the prosecutor grew visibly tense. Cole's phone buzzed again. Emma appeared briefly, eyes wide, holding a small note with a single word, balance. Cole's chest tightened. He understood the message. The kidnapper's game was not simply about saving a life. It was about testing his ability to reconcile justice with morality, to make choices under pressure, to navigate the fragility of law while protecting the innocent. He adjusted his arguments, carefully emphasizing the anomalies without revealing coercion, creating a path that could delay Hayes' execution while keeping Emma safe. He calculated risks, measured consequences, and visualized the chain reaction of each statement he made. Every second counted, every action was scrutinized, and the lines between legal reasoning and moral responsibility blurred, leaving him acutely aware that the night's challenge would leave an indelible mark on his conscience and redefine his understanding of justice, responsibility, and fatherhood. Cole watched the jury's reactions closely. He noticed subtle shifts in expression, fleeting glances exchanged among them. He realized that the narrative he was constructing in court had to be airtight, compelling, and morally persuasive. Another message arrived on his phone, a photo of Emma standing by a window, sunlight streaming in, her expression composed yet anxious. Beside her a note, "You decide." Cole felt the enormity of the choice laid bare. Each legal maneuver, each motion filed, each word spoken now carried weight far beyond precedent. He revised his oral arguments in real time, anticipating objections, calculating the impact of each phrase. The courtroom had transformed into a crucible, testing not only his skill as a judge, but his judgment as a father and a moral agent. The tension built steadily, a silent pressure that seemed to compress time itself, leaving Cole aware that the lives of two people he loved and respected hung in delicate equilibrium, and that any misstep could shatter that balance irreversibly. Cole's phone buzzed again. Emma appeared on a live feed, calm yet tense, holding a note reading, halfway. Cole understood the kidnapper's strategy. Every step he took was being monitored, every decision scrutinized. He reviewed forensic evidence once more, dissecting witness statements, evaluating timelines, and analyzing patterns. The slightest miscalculation could jeopardize both Hayes' freedom and Emma's safety. Cole focused intensely, noting micro-expressions in the courtroom, anticipating questions from the judge, counterarguments from the prosecutor, and reactions from the jury. He rehearsed his responses mentally, ensuring clarity, precision, and moral integrity. The clock ticked mercilessly and the pressure intensified. Every word he had prepared, every motion he had filed, now bore the potential to tip the scale of life and death. He understood that this challenge was as much a test of character as of legal expertise. Cole's heart raced, but he remained steady, knowing that calm, reasoned action was the only path to securing justice while safeguarding the life of his daughter. Cole returned home briefly, checking on his surroundings, ensuring no unexpected surveillance or interference. Emma's live feed displayed a subtle change. She was holding a new note that read, "Trust your judgment." Cole realized the kidnapper was forcing him to internalize the lesson. Law alone was insufficient. Moral clarity, careful observation, and decisive action were required. He mapped out his next steps, anticipating procedural delays and potential objections from the prosecution. Every document, every filing had to be precise and persuasive. He calculated timings, reviewed evidence, and mentally rehearsed courtroom dialogue. The pressure was immense, yet he recognized a pattern in the kidnapper's manipulation. Predictability, subtle nudges, and psychological triggers all designed to test his limits. Cole drew a deep breath, steadying himself, and reaffirmed his strategy. Act decisively, follow the law, but remain aware of the human lives at stake. The weight of the challenge bore down, a constant reminder that failure was not an option, and that every second now could determine the outcome of both justice and life. Cole arrived at the courtroom, prepared to present his next motion. He observed the judge's demeanor, the prosecutor's tense posture, and the subtle cues from the clerk. Every detail mattered. The emergency hearing commenced, and Cole outlined procedural discrepancies, inconsistencies in the forensic record, and gaps in testimony. The judge listened attentively, while the prosecutor challenged minor points, unaware that Cole had anticipated each objection. Another message appeared, a video feed of Emma calm holding a note, "Focus." Cole exhaled slowly. He realized the kidnapper was testing his ability to maintain composure under extreme stress. Each word, gesture, and pause in court was crucial. He remained steady, presenting his case with precision, balancing legal authority with moral insight, ensuring that every action reinforced both procedural integrity and the protection of life. Time pressed, tension mounted, and the courtroom became a battleground for intellect, morality, and courage, where each decision carried profound consequences, and Cole knew that the outcome would shape both justice and personal destiny irrevocably. Hours passed. Cole's motions were accepted for immediate review, granting temporary relief in Hayes' case. The courtroom settled into tense silence, but Cole remained vigilant. Emma's feed displayed her holding another note. Almost there, Cole understood the final stages were near. He reviewed every line of argument, anticipating responses, ensuring clarity and impact. He analyzed jury behavior, noting subtle gestures, attention lapses, and emotional cues. The kidnapper had orchestrated a psychological labyrinth, forcing him to navigate simultaneously the law, morality, and life itself. Cole's mind worked relentlessly, calculating the risks of every next step. He realized that the greatest challenge was not merely legal skill, but the courage to act decisively under pressure, to reconcile ethical imperatives with strategic necessity. Each decision now bore the weight of both justice and mortality, leaving Cole acutely aware that his choices in the next moments would have consequences far beyond the courtroom walls. Cole returned home once more, the night dark and heavy with anticipation. He studied every surveillance clip, timeline, and witness statement, cross-referencing minute details, searching for hidden clues that could secure Emma's safety and Hayes' freedom. His phone buzzed. Emma appeared on feed, holding a small note, "Decide." Cole realized the challenge was reaching its climax. Every piece of evidence, every legal argument, every motion had to converge perfectly. He rehearsed responses mentally, anticipated questions, and visualized every potential objection. The pressure was immense, yet he remained steady, understanding that composure, precision, and moral courage were the only tools to survive this trial. The shadows in the house, the silence of the streets, and the weight of the ticking clock pressed upon him like an unrelenting force. He knew that failure was not an option, and that the lives of his daughter and Hayes rested entirely on the decisions he would make in the next hours. Cole filed the final motions electronically, the confirmation tone echoing faintly in the empty house. He exhaled slowly, though relief was tempered by the awareness of remaining danger. Emma's feed displayed her holding a note. Balance, Cole understood. The kidnapper's lesson was complete. Every manipulation, every test, every subtle pressure point had been designed to measure his moral and legal judgment. He reviewed each step, ensuring every motion, argument, and document maintained integrity and precision. The courtroom, the law, and human morality had converged into a single, delicate equation, one he could neither ignore nor miscalculate. He felt the weight of every life, past and present, that had passed through his courtroom, realizing that justice was fragile, human, and manipulable. The night's trials had tested every skill, every instinct, and every moral principle he possessed, leaving him with a profound understanding that life and law were intertwined in a balance that required vigilance, courage, and unwavering conscience. Cole received another video message. Emma, calm but alert, held a note that read, "Focus." He understood the final test was psychological as well as legal. Every move he made in the courtroom and outside had been monitored, analyzed, and anticipated. He reviewed the motions he had filed, ensuring each argument was airtight, every procedural reference precise. The prosecutor's face in court reflected frustration, unaware that Cole had anticipated every challenge. He rehearsed potential counterarguments, visualized each courtroom reaction, and aligned his strategy with both ethical imperatives and practical necessity. Every second carried weight, every word bore consequence, and every decision could tip the balance of life and death. Cole felt the weight of his decades-long career pressing down, realizing that the lessons of law, morality, and human behavior were converging into a single, critical crucible that would define the remainder of his life. The judge reviewed Cole's motions carefully, flipping through evidence, noting inconsistencies, and raising questions that Cole anticipated with meticulous precision. Emma's live feed displayed her standing upright, her eyes steady, holding a note that said, "Almost there." Cole understood that patience, composure, and strategy had brought him to this critical juncture. He addressed the courtroom with measured calm, presenting arguments with clarity, balancing legal authority with human empathy. Every gesture, every phrase, every pause was deliberate, calculated to maintain both procedural integrity and moral responsibility. The prosecutor grew visibly frustrated, challenging minor points while Cole countered flawlessly. The clock ticked relentlessly, each second amplifying the tension. Cole felt a rare clarity. The law was not abstract, nor was morality simple. The intersection of both required judgment, courage, and insight, all of which he had relied upon to guide his actions, protect his daughter, and ensure justice prevailed against manipulation and threat. Cole felt the weight of exhaustion but remained focused. He reviewed each motion, ensuring that all points aligned perfectly with legal precedent and ethical standards. The live feed of Emma displayed a subtle change. She was smiling faintly, holding a note reading, "You're ready." Cole understood the kidnapper had orchestrated this final reinforcement, testing both confidence and composure. He adjusted his courtroom strategy, anticipating objections, preempting arguments, and ensuring that every motion preserved both the letter and spirit of the law. Each second passed with heightened awareness, and Cole realized that the true test was not just legal skill, but the ability to maintain moral clarity under extreme pressure. He visualized potential outcomes, analyzed consequences, and ensured that every decision reinforced integrity while protecting life. The challenge was nearly complete, and the delicate balance between justice and personal responsibility rested entirely on his continued focus, insight, and unwavering courage. Cole's motions were approved temporarily, delaying Hayes' execution. Relief washed over him briefly before the reality returned. The challenge was not over. Emma's feed displayed her holding a note. Finish. Cole understood the final act required careful orchestration, aligning law, evidence, and moral judgment. He prepared final statements, cross-referenced every piece of evidence, and visualized the courtroom's reactions. The prosecutor, unaware of the full orchestration, argued points that Cole had anticipated, allowing him to respond calmly, decisively, and with ethical precision. Every word reinforced the balance between procedural correctness and human compassion. Cole felt the culmination of decades of legal experience, personal courage, and moral responsibility converge into a single moment. The stakes were immense. One misstep could undo everything. The courtroom had become a crucible, testing intellect, composure, and moral courage simultaneously. Cole's mind worked tirelessly, knowing that success required flawless execution, clarity of thought, and absolute moral resolve. Cole returned home briefly, checking Emma's surroundings, ensuring no new threats were present. Her live feed displayed her holding a final note, "Decide now." Cole understood the ultimate test had arrived. Every prior challenge, every motion filed, and every psychological pressure point led to this final moment. He reviewed his strategy one last time, reinforcing clarity, precision, and ethical reasoning. The clock ticked down relentlessly, each second amplifying the urgency. He visualized the courtroom, anticipated every objection, and mentally rehearsed responses. The weight of his career, the safety of his daughter, and the fate of Hayes hung in delicate equilibrium. Cole realized that success required balancing law, morality, and strategy simultaneously, demanding every ounce of intellect, patience, and courage. He exhaled slowly, steeling himself for the decisive moments ahead, understanding that the choices made now would echo for the rest of his life and determine the survival of those he loved most. Cole entered the courtroom, motion documents in hand, confidence tempered by awareness of the stakes. The judge, clerk, and prosecutor observed him keenly. He presented arguments meticulously, highlighting procedural inconsistencies, evidence anomalies, and the ethical implications of a hasty verdict. Each objection from the prosecution was countered with precise reasoning and legal precedent. The jury watched attentively, absorbing the clarity and depth of his presentation. Cole's phone vibrated subtly. Emma's feed displayed her calm face holding a note that said, "Balance achieved." Cole felt the weight of responsibility shift slightly. He had maintained integrity while safeguarding life. The courtroom was tense, every eye focused on him, but Cole remained composed, navigating the intersection of law, morality, and human consequence with precision. He understood that the next hours would decide the outcome, and that careful judgment was the only path to success. The judge granted temporary reprieve, acknowledging the procedural concerns outlined by Cole. Relief mingled with tension. The kidnapper's test was nearing conclusion. Cole reviewed every motion, every piece of evidence, ensuring that nothing had been overlooked. Emma's live feed displayed her holding a note reading, "Well done." Cole exhaled, realizing that the combination of preparation, composure, and moral clarity had guided him successfully through the labyrinth. The courtroom's tension eased slightly, but Cole remained vigilant, knowing that vigilance was required until every outcome was secured. He observed the jury's reactions, the prosecutor's expressions, and anticipated any late objections. Every detail mattered. The balance of justice had been maintained under extreme conditions, yet the night's psychological strain reminded him of the fragility of law when human life was at stake. He understood fully that the mastery of both intellect and morality had been essential to achieve this resolution. Cole left the courthouse and returned home, his mind replaying every second, every decision. Emma appeared on live feed, untied, smiling faintly but weary, holding a note reading. "You passed." Cole felt the culmination of fear, calculation, and moral courage release from his shoulders. The kidnapper's test had concluded, teaching a harsh lesson about the interplay of law, manipulation, and human vulnerability. Cole reflected on the decisions made, the precision required, and the moral responsibility he had borne. He understood that justice was not simply a set of rules, but a dynamic, fragile balance requiring vigilance, wisdom, and courage. The knight had tested every aspect of his character, forcing him to confront fears, make impossible choices, and act with clarity under pressure. He exhaled deeply, knowing that this experience would leave an indelible mark, shaping both his future judgments and his understanding of morality, law, and life itself. Cole sat beside Emma, holding her hand, feeling the warmth of life and safety restored. The ordeal had tested his skills, courage, and moral compass to the extreme. He reflected on the challenges posed by the kidnapper, the delicate balancing of legal precision and human consequence. Every choice he had made, every strategy executed, and every calculation had brought them to this moment. Cole understood that the night's events had reshaped his perspective on justice, morality, and responsibility. He looked at Emma's eyes, realizing that the bond between parent and child had been strengthened by shared adversity. The weight of experience, fear, and triumph settled around him, and he knew that the lessons learned would endure, influencing every decision, every judgment, and every act of compassion in his life from this point forward. The shadows had receded, but their imprint remained. Dawn broke over the city, pale light filtering through the blinds. Cole held Emma close, knowing the danger had passed, yet understanding that the night's trial had left an enduring mark. He reflected on the kidnapper's intricate manipulation, the delicate navigation of law, morality, and human life, and the profound lessons learned under extreme pressure. Every motion filed, every objection countered, and every decision made had been a test of intellect, courage, and ethical judgment. Cole realized that justice was a fragile human construct and that its preservation required vigilance, clarity, and courage. He felt both exhaustion and relief, aware that the ordeal had forever altered his perception of law, morality, and responsibility. Emma looked up, smiling faintly, and Cole knew that the night had proven not only the resilience of the human spirit, but the enduring power of integrity, courage, and love in the face of unimaginable challenges. The scales had tipped, balance restored, and life continued.